From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight as we preview the Broncos-49ers matchup Sunday Night Football. Just a couple of days away. And Ben, the Broncos are 1-1. The San Francisco 49ers are 1-1. And it's going to be a different quarterback out there for the 49ers than they started the season. So typically speaking, when it's a new quarterback, the backup quarterback going in, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe that's an advantage for the opponent, right? But maybe not so much in this case with Jimmy Garoppolo, who has so much history with the 49ers. It seems like a lot of the conversations coming out of San Francisco is, in some ways, this might even improve things for the team because at least he's a known commodity.
I think it will be easier for the Broncos to defend the known commodity. He doesn't have as dynamic a game with his legs, and this defense is susceptible to mobile quarterbacks. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't exactly have the strongest arm in the world. We've seen that before in person when he came out here threw 4 interceptions in practice to the Broncos players. I don't think it's an advantage or a disadvantage or whatever. I think it's neutral. I think the stats that matter. You go back and you look over the last 8 meetings. Russell Wilson is 6-2 against Kyle Shanahan all time, 12-4 against the Niners all time, and 4-0 in his last 4 meetings against Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers, and hopefully there's some confidence to take in those numbers.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Russell Wilson likes playing against the 49ers and has a lot of success against them, but it's a different situation, right? Because he's here with the Broncos and what they represent. And I think a lot of this comes down to what the Broncos can do to not put themselves in bad situations with penalties, struggles in the red zone, decisions throughout the course of the game. Inevitably, the Broncos could have been in the conversation of 2-0 with a better managed game. And so I think that the biggest questions I have about this game are not so much about the matchup of which receivers going against which cornerback, that type of thing. Is will the Broncos show up and be a team that is not dead last in the NFL in penalties committed and not dead last in the NFL in red zone percentage?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a team right now that's number 1 in the NFL in yards per drive. So the offense is working; it's rolling up yardage. They're just not finishing. They're not executing inside the red zone, inside goal-to-go situations, and that's been the problem. They've left points on the field. So what we need is a team that finishes out these drives. We can't have fumbles at the 1-yard line. We can't have we got a situational awareness of our feet, getting our feet in bounds where we're making catches. No penalties there at the goal line where we're making touchdown catches. We need, we just need to finish and we need to execute. All those things are all things that can be cleaned up. Yep. I think that a lot of the narrative and the histrionics that are out there right now on Nathaniel Hackett, I think if you take a step back and take a deep breath for a second and you look at this, not all this are on the coach. Some of it's just coincidence and it's all just being compounded or exacerbated by a bad decision or two. One of those decisions being the endgame field goal against Seattle. One of those decisions being the third down fullback option, that turned into a field goal attempt that turned into a punt. Those kinds of things they magnify in the public spotlight. And so people have this narrative that Nathaniel Hackett is in over his head. The reality is this offense is kind of clicking, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're 7th in yards per play. You mentioned in yards per drive, they're number 1. They're 10th in rushing. They're 8th in passing. You go to the defensive side of the ball, they're 5th in yards per play. They're 3rd in points. They're 5th in rushing. They're 5th in passing. I mean, this is a team that by most metrics is succeeding, despite the fact that when you hear people talk about it on the radio, you hear people write articles about it, it's quite the opposite. It's a disaster, and the coaching staff is in over their heads. So, again, you have to prove that narrative wrong, right? If you're Nathaniel Hackett, it's a primetime game. Big opportunity. You got to take that narrative and spin it the other way. And it's going to start with being better in the red zone. And it's going to start with the penalties because right now, 25 penalties through the first 2 games of the season is the most in franchise history. That is an undeniable fact. Mm-hmm. You are 32nd in the league in penalties committed. That is an undeniable fact. Mm-hmm. These things have to be changed immediately.
They do, and that's the thing. The Broncos are on pace to absolutely blow by Dallas's record last year. I think Dallas had something like 117 penalties this year.
They're going to be in the 200s if they keep this pace.
Yeah, they're on pace for over 200. They had, I want to say it was 86 penalties all of last year. They're almost a third of the way there right now. A little bit under a third of the way there.
That's accepted penalties, by the way. They had more penalties in the Houston game.
Total. That's accepted penalties. Yeah. They had 2 delay of games all last year, 4 delay of games this year. They got to break that huddle faster and get out of the huddle. And there are things they need to clean up. These are all things, though, that you can correct, and that's got to be the encouraging thing. I look at the numbers, I look at the data, I look at the tape, I look at all this stuff, and I say the Broncos are poised for a breakout one direction or another. because it's not sustainable to have that good an offense and that good a defense and not finish scoring points, right? So either you are going to start scoring points, you're going to get those things cleaned up, or you're going to go completely off the rails, spiral down, and this thing's going to fall apart. And I really do feel like this game is a pivotal moment for Nathaniel Hackett as a young head coach.
For a moment, though, I do want to talk about some matchups with the 49ers. What are you most interested? You say you're not as worried about Jimmy Garoppolo, but he does have some talented receivers. We don't know if George Kittle's going to play in this one or not just yet, but Deebo Samuel, we know what he is. We know what Brandon Ayuk is. A little banged up at running back, but they do have Wilson. Jeff Wilson's a pretty successful guy that they've had out there before. So it seems to me like on the offensive side of the ball for the 49ers, if they lean on what we know they can do, they're not going to make a lot of mistakes. They're going to run the ball, and they are going to take some shots against you with Ayuk and Samuel.
Yeah, it's going to be the run fit day. You're really hoping Josie Jewell is back for this one because it's going to be a run fit day. The thing I'm most interested though is the Niners secondary against the Broncos receivers. Broncos are a little banged up. I'm more interested in that side of the ball. I know what the Broncos defense is. It's good, and they're going to be good. It's the other side of the ball that the question marks abound. We've seen the Broncos offense roll up pretty good yardage over the last couple of weeks, but they haven't been able to score. They haven't been able to execute in the red zone. And, oh, by the way, now you got a banged-up receiving core going up against a pretty good secondary. Those safeties of San Francisco might be the most underrated safety duo in the NFL.
Oh, no, tons of talent. And they have one of my favorite inside linebackers in the league right now. So I think that's a great point you bring up. I think that the known commodity for the Broncos is the defense and the success they have. Both these defenses are only giving up 13 points per game, as I mentioned, third in the league. So you know what that is. The 49ers offense giving right now scoring 18.5 points per game, which is just a little north of where the Broncos are. So they really haven't rounded into form either. So you sort of feel good about that. I'm sure for the 49ers, they feel good about their defense too. So then it comes down to what does the Broncos offense do? Yeah,
you're going to have to be able to establish the run early and dictate, and then you build off that. Russ hasn't had the timing down with the receivers just yet. And so I think that this is a game where you're going to have to have that happen in big moments, but you got to stick with the run game, dance with the one that brung you. You know, the run game has been the bread and butter of the Denver Broncos right now. I know it's exciting that we have Russell Wilson, but the timing just isn't there yet. So let's just run the ball down their throats over and over again, as one Ryan Edwards posited we should do. And let Russ crochet.
The irony of us having this conversation months after somebody on this show said that this is what they should do. I don't know. It brings a big smile to my face. I don't know why.
Hopefully the Broncos take a bigger victory lap than Ryan is taking on the show right now.
Well, just the whole thing that you did right there, where you're just like, you know what the strength of this team is. You run the ball, and that's what they need to do. And
I was hoping that Russ would have the timing down with these guys a lot quicker, and they clearly don't.
But they will, and they will.
Yeah, that's not to say they won't get there, but they don't right now.
But even when we had this conversation in the offseason, it wasn't ever me or anybody saying like, hey, Russell Wilson is brought in here that you don't ever want to lean on him. What I want from Russell Wilson right now, and of course over the course of the season, I want his fourth quarter ability.
Yeah,
he is one of the best fourth quarter quarterbacks in the history of the game.
Right.
And so, and even with the frustration of last week where he was a sub 50% completion, guess what? He was 5 for 8 in the fourth quarter.
He was. And he also had 6 drops early in that game.
He did. So, but that's my point, right? Is when it comes to the fourth quarter, the guy just turns it on and he figures it out. And that is what a lot of the Seahawks success, and I know Seahawks fans who've been in my mentions and are going to watch this and hate watch us or whatever, it's fine. You have to understand that Pete Carroll and his coaching wasn't always the reason why the Seahawks had all their success. Yes, he did a lot of good things, which is giving Russell Wilson a good running game. But guess what? They relied on Russell Wilson at the end of halftime and going in the fourth quarter to bail them out all the time.
To pull some magic out.
That's right.
It reminds me of someone, he's like Tim Tebow, but good.
Why do you do that to me?
Because you love Tim Tebow.
I still have a soft spot. All right, there you go. That is our preview of the Broncos and the 49ers. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.
Denver's going to win! You can stand up and salute in Denver, and you got the world champions that live in your town.